Hey everyone, welcome to Deep Focus on YouTube. My name is Aiden,
I'm Andrew.
and we're continuing along our series of like the fantasy Oscars of picking our various winners of films. Last time we did 1940 through 1944, and this time we're doing 1945 through 1949. So yeah, before we get started, I'm just curious, Andrew, you got any like overall thoughts on the years?
Yeah, so there's definitely some big ones that I'll be speaking about today, but
Yeah,
I also think overall I was more familiar with the earlier part of the decade. I think maybe just the types of movies, especially like the Universal ones, they had a lot of ones
yeah.
kind of earlier on. So we're in more of a post-war period here, so get some different stuff going on. So
Yeah, I'd say looking at this versus last time, I think I'm a slightly more of a fan of this stretch. I think it's a little more my speed, but I think it's pretty close. Like both of them have. Last time I think three of the films that I picked for winner were like in my top 20 of all time or something. And I think it's the same this time. It's going to be three of them too. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of this whole stretch too. So yeah, want to get started for 1945?
yeah, sounds good. So uh, got a lot of kind of carryover on the categories for this one, but we'll start with Best Picture. So for that, I'm giving that to The Last Weekend. This was the actual winner, I believe, and I'll back that. It's
Yeah.
kind of this examination on alcoholism. Saw it years ago, probably due for a rewatch, but it's a really good film, and Billy Wilder is definitely one of the greats to me. So I'm also going to give him Best Director, which I believe also, like the Academy, it's a subject matter that could have fallen a bit flat, and I think in a less assured hand. So that speaks to him overseeing this one. But for screenplay, I'm going to give it to Brief Encounter. This was adapted from a stage play focusing in on like these ideas of love, fidelity, happenstance. Has more of that character-driven momentum that I think is important to have on the page. So that's what I'm going to give for screenplay. And for Best Actor, this is where we get into kind of, my wheelhouse. I'm giving that to Boris Karloff for The Body Snatcher. I'm big on this era of horror, and I think this is one of Boris's finest. He's so dastardly in this, and it's great to see it in a story that's really bolstered by the Val Lewton series of films that had a little bit more of a thoughtfulness to it. So uh, I'm happy to kind of represent him here with this one. And then for actress, I'm going to give that to Joan Crawford for Mildred Pierce. She plays the title character, another actual winner. She's kind of this star vehicle about a divorced mother, needs to tackle enterprise for spoiled kids, and I believe it's another one that was adapted from a story, but she's kind of, the the rock star of the lead for this one, so has to kind of
Yeah.
handle everything. So she'll get it for that. And then supporting actor, this one goes to Michael Redgrave for Dead of Night. It's from this British anthology film. It's like a precursor to The Twilight Zone. He's in what is generally considered the most memorable segment. Plays this ventriloquist, and it's really amazing performance. So highly recommend that one. And then lastly, for supporting actress, I'm giving that to Angela Lansbury for The Picture of Dorian Gray. I believe she was nominated for this part. She really stood out to me in this role as a character. You feel so bad for her. She really gets the short end of the stick here as kind of the victim of the title character. So yeah, those are my picks for 1945.
Some great stuff there. I think we're gonna I think we're gonna overlap on one film for this year. So my best picture, I'm gonna be going with Brief Encounter. I think it's it's one of my favorite movies, just period. I think it's just so um I think it's just so well done. The framing device where you see the first scene separate from the rest of the film and it turns out to be the last scene again and you see it again with all the new context and it makes it feel so much different is such a brilliant like storytelling thing that it's just super well done and all the characters are very well written and it has kind of a good such good pacing and good suspense kind of so yeah, I'm very, very big into that. Um, for director, I think I'm gonna also go with Brief Encounter with David Lean, which I really like a lot of his early work. He gets to use a lot of very high contrast lighting. He gets to use a lot of very like German expressionism angles and style with that. I think that's really cool. He also did, he did a lot of great films this decade. So I kind of wanted to get him in for director somewhere. I think my best actor, I'm going to go with Tom Neal from Detour. I know this film is kind of eerie because it imitated life a bit because he ended up, I think, killing his wife later on. So it's a little eerie that he plays, a suspected killer here, but it's such a great film. And it's very short, very punchy. I find with a lot of those old film noir, they really get so much packed into a very short runtime and it's very impressive. And I also just really like his performance, and I think it's a super cool kind of vision of a desperate character. I especially would flag up the one scene where he finds the dead guy and like takes his clothes and basically like robs him, and then like dreams about it the very next night and it's rare because I don't think you see movies do that a lot, like literally show you the exact same events twice in a row. But it's really good from a storytelling perspective because it shows you his like paranoia. Um, Best actress, I'm gonna go with Celia Johnson from Brief Encounter. I think her performance is really the heart of the film. I think it's so moving and so gripping with how she plays a character whose like marriage has kind of passed her by and she falls in love with Trevor Howard's character. I think she's just such a relatable character, so well done. And I think just it's great. Um, my best supporting actor and actress are going to go together. I'm going to give it to also to Brief Encounter to Stanley Holloway and Joyce Carey, who play the two main workers at the train station where a lot of the events come. I think it's really cool to have this kind of comic contrast to the more dark scenes and the more emotional scenes. And a lot of the stuff with them is very funny, but it's also kind of sweet. So it's a good kind of counterbalance, I think. But when it comes to screenplay, um, my winner for best screenplay is going to be a film called I Know Where I'm Going, which is a Powell and Pressburger vehicle. And this is a film about a woman who's going to get married and she on a remote island in Scotland, but she gets stranded like off the coast. She can't get there by the storm, and she ends up falling in love with like a sea captain. And there's so many just really good touches, I think, to the screenplay that make it very like very moving. There's this like family curse on the captain, and it ends up kind of like coming back in a very nice way. There's some really funny stuff at the beginning. I really like that. There's this subplot about this kind of eccentric old general who's looking for his like pet falcon. Like there's a lot of really funny and like fun little touches, I feel like, that make it a very quirky kind of film that's different from the other type of stuff. And especially because it's an original screenplay. I felt like I wanted to give it the award. So yeah, that's my 1945 slate.
Well, between yours and mine, we got a lot of categories there for Brief Encounter, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, I guess we'll move on to 46. And this is probably the closest to like a runaway sweep that I'll get for this video. So for Best Picture, for me, that's It's a Wonderful Life. Kind of pick for me that was never in doubt. One of my favorite films ever. Pretty much perfect in my books. It's a beautiful film. You got humor, pathos, and it warms the heart. And naturally, it'll take Best Director too. Frank Capra has that sincerity that he was really great at bringing out. And I'm also giving it to the screenplay. I think the script is pretty important to make kind of the adventurous left turns that it takes really matter. You need like all the little details they put into the character, between like the flashbacks and stuff like that, and how they pay off into what his life could have been, or what life would have been without him, and stuff like that. So yeah, so it wins all three categories there for me, and I might as well keep it going one more time with Best Actor, James Stewart. It's the charming but troubled lead, kind of a defining role for him. Great actor, so we'll give him that. Now for Best Actress, I'm going to be going with Ingrid Bergman for Notorious, from the Hitchcock spy noir of that name. She has a lot of heavy lifting to do here, playing off two potential love interests. You have Cary Grant, the U.S. agent she's working with, but also being the seductress to the film's chief antagonist. So I think having to kind of play off both of them really stood out for me for her there. And speaking of the antagonist of that film, supporting actor, I'm giving to Claude Rains for Notorious. He puts in another great turn. It's a neat mix for him, having like these genuine feelings for Bergman's character, while also being in over his head with shady dealings and going to great lengths to protect himself, and compromising his morality as a result. So yeah, he'll get it for that. For supporting actress, I'm going to give that to Ethel Barrymore for The Spiral Staircase. And it's another memorable performance of character acting. You have this creepy mystery with a serial killer on the loose in a house. She plays this like bedridden matriarch. She's really cantankerous and feeble, but has this feistiness that really pays off in the later part of the film.
Yeah, this year is crazy. I think it's my favorite years. But it also meant big picks from you, but it also meant that there were so many very hard choices that I had to make, and a lot of very close like runners up and stuff. Um, yeah, so just getting into it. I think I've come up with a creative way to like split the awards so I don't have to snub anything too major. But my pick for Best Picture, it's going to be A Matter of Life and Death, which the Powell and Pressburger film, which ironically is in some ways very similar to It's a Wonderful Life. It's also like a kind of magical realism film about someone who's about to die and then comes back to life. So that's a bit of a coincidence, I guess. But yeah, for me, this is one of those films that just really made me love movies. The story is pilot survives a fall that no one thought could be survived, and then falls in love, but then discovers that he only survived because the angel who was supposed to take him to heaven didn't catch him. So then he has to fight for his right to stay on Earth. So I really love the story. Yeah, I just love all of that. I think it's really gripping and really moving. And if we split original and adapted screenplay, I'd give this Best Original, and I'd give It's a Wonderful Life Best Adapted. But since we're only doing one category, to mix it up, I'll give Best Screenplay to It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah, everything you said, I agree with. This is also one of my favorites ever. I think it's so emotional at the end. Every scene is so well constructed. I think, and then especially the ending is definitely my favorite. Just the whole way that scene is written. And it's funny because it kind of resembles, it's also a kind of similar scene with like everyone's singing Auld Lang Syne and Mr. Deeds goes to town like a decade earlier, but this one is just so much more perfected by Capra. It's like such a perfect screenplay. So yeah, definitely winning that for me. My best director, I'm gonna give it to Orson Welles for The Stranger. Just a really well directed film. There are so many great choices and just how it's put together. There's a lot of really long takes. There's a like a murder set piece in the woods that's shot with I think a 5 or 6 minute long take. So there's a lot of really very ambitious stuff with that. And there's it's very super close to Hitchcock kind of. Then it almost feels more like one Hitchcock film in some ways in terms of the way it's shot, but that's obviously a good thing. So, um, but yeah, there's just so many creative ways it's shot, and there's a lot of he does like a lot of cool stuff with mirrors in the drugstore scenes, like shooting characters through the mirror and stuff, and getting a lot of depth. So yeah, it's a really great, well shot film. Um, Actor and actress will go together for the main ones. David Niven, and Kim Hunter from A Matter of Life and Death. I feel like I had to give it to them because I feel like the movie wouldn't have been believable if you didn't believe that they fell in love in like 3 minutes, and you kind of do. Like it's a really a testament to how great the acting is. And their central romance is just so well told, and their performances are so great because Niven is kind of playing shock, and he's also playing kind of losing his mind because he's having these crazy paranormal visions of heaven trying to take him back. And then Kim Hunter's playing her character about how she's trying to help but also doesn't really know how to. So it's just really well done, and you really believe it. um and then my so I'm going to give A Matter of Life and Death supporting actor with Roger Livesey, who I also considered him the previous year for I Know Where I'm Going, but this year I think he really takes the cake. His speech at the end and the very big trial scene is just a super great, like one of my favorite monologues, like in any movie. I think it's just super compelling and very well done acting from him. So yeah, and then I'm gonna give supporting actress to. I had to get this film in somehow. I'm gonna give it to Martisha Hunt from Great Expectations. I think this is an amazing movie. Another really strong contender, which is funny because it's probably like my third or fourth favorite film of the year, but it's too good to ignore. Um, but yeah, she's just really great. The character of Miss Haversham is kind of an interesting one always, I find, in these adaptations. And I like it when they play it more sympathetically, like she does. And you really get a very great sense of what she's lost and why she's clinging on to the to the house, and why she's stuck in the past kind of. And I never thought about it, but it is a very gothic detail that she just keeps in one room, like the wedding cake from the night she got left at the altar, even though it's like 30 years later and the cake's just like rotting in that room. That's such a like horror movie detail just in Charles Dickens book. But yeah, those are gonna be my 1946 picks.
Very nice. It's always tricky to try to, represent everything that you want. So
Yeah.
I think you could try to do that. All right, so I guess that takes me to 47, and this was a bit of a tricky year for me because I haven't seen a lot in the way of like the big classics, and a lot of the nominated films for that year definitely didn't stand out. But I mean, there's probably an exception or two. But anyways, so I dug a little deep for researching this one, and I think I'm pretty happy with what I came up with. So for Best Picture, that will go to Black Narcissus, The visual choices here are just incredible. It's gorgeous Technicolor, amazing use of scale in that mountainside environment, and performances worth talking about that I will be talking about. And I'll give Powell and Pressburger this for Best Director. I think it's a testament to the direction with all these creative choices that elevate an already intriguing premise. Of like the nuns, school at the whatever you would call it. It would just not be iconic if you had like a more reserved stage delivery here. And I think that's really where they elevated. For Best Screenplay, I'm going back to another Christmas film, actually, Miracle on 34th Street. It's a cute film. The decision to place a courtroom drama at the center just hits the right spots for me, so I had to go with that. And Best Actress, going back to Black Narcissus with Deborah Kerr. She's attempting to do something she's just like moving on from the past as this like demure like lead in charge of, she's in charge of the nurse, the nun group. I can't remember what you call that.
Nunnery? I don't know.
Nunnery? Yeah. But she also has this like failed romantic past that's haunting her. So I think that's kind of a cool thing. And I think I missed Best Actor there, which is I'm giving to Robert Mitchum for Out of the Past. He kind of has all these trappings of the classic film noir, man trying to escape a previous life, but much like Deborah Kerr, the past coming back to haunt him, has that tough voice and hardened presence that makes such a great role for these types of films. For supporting actor, that'll go to Edmund Gwynn for A Miracle on 34th Street. Super charming and grandfatherly as this Kris Kringle on trial. Not sure I can think of a better Santa Claus in cinema. So I'm going to give him that. And then lastly, dipping back to Black Narcissus, probably the easiest decision of the year for me, Kathleen Byron playing Sister Ruth as the increasingly unstable nun. Actually quite frightening. Definitely one of the most frightening performances, I think, in this prop. So, yeah.
Yeah, great choice. I think Black Narcissus is really great, and it's another one that it's just like you want more slots, and yeah. So this year, I think the problem with this year for me is that it has, I think, like maybe my all-time favorite movie. So because of that, everything else I kind of had to like just shelve on the back burner too much. So it's very close to a sweep. But I tried not to do a full sweep. I tried to restrain myself. So my best picture choice is going to be The Lady from Shanghai, directed by Orson Welles. I'm also going to give director to. Yeah, this movie is just like this is one of I think just one of my favorite movies, period, ever. There's so many great things with the way it's like set up between the like moody location shooting on Mexico, one of the first films to be shot on location. There's just really great set pieces. It's very weird. I think of it as like one of the weirdest great movies ever. There's like this big scene in the aquarium. There's the shootout in the Hall of Mirrors. There's a courtroom scene in the second act where it's like just played like straight up comedy in the middle of like a film noir. There's people coughing and interrupting each other and yelling and just all this crazy stuff. It's so funny. And I'm definitely going to give that director award too. Yeah, it's just the I think it might be some of his best work in terms of the way it's set up and the way everything. And I think the Hall of Mirrors ending is just maybe the best. I think maybe my favorite scene, period. For screenplay, just to try to mix it up a bit, not have too much of a clean sweep, I'm going to give that to Daniel Manwaring for Out of the Past. Yeah, I think this is a really great film. It's actually based on the book by the same person writing the screenplay, so that's usually a plus, I think. And I really just like the story. It's very kind of complicated with that big flashback that lasts for like 30 minutes in the middle of the film. I think that's like a kind of ambitious structure thing to do. Um, and I like the kind of ambiguity of the ending and all of that. I think it's a very well written screenplay. Um, my best actor choice, I'm going to be going with Rex Harrison in The Ghost and Mrs. Muir, the Joseph Mankiewicz film. I think he plays this character so well, and like I think it's the role only I think Rex Harrison could have played this kind of extremely boisterous and like loud and unlikable dead ghost, but someone who's also like super charming and very off like very yeah, just very charming and very suave when in some points. So it's such a very good role, and I really like this movie because it has such a um such a great such a great sense of that. And my best actress, I'm also going to go with the lady from Shanghai with Rita Hayworth. It's funny, you can really tell that her and Orson Welles were divorcing when this film was made because she is just such a terrible like villain in this whole movie. Uh, like she's so conniving and she's like such a classic femme fatale. And yeah, it's her role is just really great. And and the way she plays it is just super good. And I think it's helped a bit by it seems like the film itself can't even decide what it thinks of her because half the time when she's in the shot, she's framed like the object of desire, and the other half she's framed like the scariest thing in the entire world. Like can't even, decide. And I think she plays into that too because she goes from alluring to like vicious in a scene. So that's pretty great. Um, Best supporting actor, I'm gonna go also with the lady from Shanghai, and I'm gonna go with Everett Sloane, who plays Grisby, the lawyer. I think this performance is a super underrated one. I think he basically plays him as like I think like a paraplegic who like has to walk everywhere with these two canes, and it lends such a like creepy physicality to the character because so often you see like the canes lurch forward in the shot before he even enters. So it really adds a very unsteady way to how he kind of moves physically. Um yeah, and it's super interesting. Like it and the way he I think that it's a super cool like physical choice for his acting, and the way he's just like so grotesque and like um openly a psycho in the film is also super good. And yeah, so it's gonna be my best supporting actor. Honestly, I couldn't come up with a good supporting actress for this year. This was the only category. I seriously couldn't come up with anything good really, but I'll figure something out before I upload the video, and I'll insert a little something, I guess. So yeah, 47 for me.
That's funny because it was my easiest category too. I haven't seen The Lady in Shanghai, but definitely well aware that Holland Mirror is soon, so that's great. So nice.
Yeah, it's so great. But yeah, 48.
Okay, 48. So this was probably the hardest. It was hard in that I felt a little spoiled for choice this year. Probably two or three of my favorites, other than It's a Wonderful Life, showing up here. But I think I'm going with, for Best Picture, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I think it probably brings all the stops that go into like a best film. Great story, performances, all brought together in a gripping package. And likewise, I'll give John Huston the director nod for the fourth straight year. I think I'm backing picture and director, but that will change for the next one. So this one lost Best Picture in the actual Academy Awards, but it did win for Best Director. So I'm just going to double up on that. Now for screenplay, I gotta go with another favorite. That's Rope. Aside from like the cool one-take concept, or the closest they could get to that, this film really lives and dies by its amazing concept of like this real-time murder, the cover-up, the party, and then the unraveling. Just totally gripping from beginning to end. So yeah, that gets the screenplay nod. For Best Actor, going back to Treasure of the Sierra Madre with Humphrey Bogart. He's won before in like a more stoic leading man role, but this one really shines because he has like that gradual deterioration. Really calls to mind the arcs of like the anti-heroes you'd see in like more modern television. It's no surprise that Breaking Bad was inspired by this film in particular, and I think his character is like the biggest reason for that. So he gets that. And I'm gonna talk about actress and supporting actress together here because it's for the same film. It's for I Remember Mama. So that's Irene Dunne for Best Actress and Barbara Bel Geddes for Supporting Actress. So Irene Dunne plays like the title character, a Norwegian immigrant juggling motherhood, marriage, family crises. Caught this one on TV quite a while ago, and it kind of struck me how like a simple drama could really suck you in like this. She has like this warm and touching lead role, and then the daughter, Barbara Bel Geddes, she's like aspiring to be this author. Another really wholesome performance that wins you over. So they get the nods for those. And then lastly, for supporting actress, supporting actor, that'll go to Walter Houston, Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Great turn as Howard, the gold prospector, really thrives in this archetype of like the knowledgeable veteran who's been through it all before. And it's just a great character movie, and he's like definitely a character part for that. So yeah, big wins for that film this year.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. Yeah, I think we're going to line up on 4 this year. So picture 100%, I'm going with the Treasure of the Sierra Madre. And I am so grateful that last year The Lady from Shanghai was released on like December 26th, because I think I would have actually died not being able to give this anything. Such a perfect movie. And it's amazing just how well done everything is. It's so it's so well paced, it's so well shot, so well acted. I think it's just seriously just a perfect film. And yeah, same thing for director. I'm gonna give that to Houston as well. He's such a pro with how he shoots things. You know, this is, I guess, his 4th film technically, if you don't count all of his like army documentaries, which I don't know, they're fine, but they're not this. You know, this is great. And it's always cool. It doesn't really. I think one of the reasons I like this movie so much is it doesn't look like any other Western from that period of time. It looks totally different. And I think a lot of that is this was also one of the very first films shot on location. Almost the entire film was actually shot in Mexico. So it looks so real compared to, you know, Hollywood sound stages and rear projection. And I also think the black and white helps with that. It makes it feel so like gritty and grim. Best actor, I think, definitely Humphrey Bogart from Treasure of the Sierra Madre. I think this is such a terrible snub in the actual Oscars looking back that he wasn't even nominated. Like his performance is just so perfect. Like, yeah, I don't get it. It's crazy. But you know, I guess that's that. For best screenplay, I'm gonna go also with Rope, based on the Patrick Hamilton play, I guess. Yeah, it's such an ambitious concept for a film. And I think the only parts of this movie that don't quite work for me are like whenever they have to transition from the like 10-minute sequence to the next. I do think that's handled a little awkwardly, but like there's no good way to do it. And it's so cool that they even tried with the whole one-shot premise. So yeah, this is great. The just yeah, it's the characters are so well handled. And I think a lot of these like real-time movies like Rope and like 12 Angry Men and a lot of those like that really have very strong characters, because you can't get away with like characters slightly changing characterization scene to scene because it's all essentially one scene. So the characters have to be super tight and perfectly written, or your whole thing kind of fucks up. So this is great. Definitely wins screenplay for me. My pick for best actor, best actress in the leading role, I'm going to be going with Lauren Bacall from Key Largo, another John Huston film, at least the same year. Yeah, her performance was really good. I think earlier on, she was a very big femme fatale in Howard Hawks films and others. But I think this is one of the first ones where I think she's really great just on the acting front in terms of getting into this role. And it's really, I just really like her character, and I really like her performance. So yeah, best supporting actor, I'm gonna be mixing it up. I don't even think they nominated him. Alec Guinness from Oliver Twist as Fagin. His performance is just so good. He lends such a unique like physicality to the character. The way he embodies, the way he feels very. It's a great performance despite all of the makeup, the hair, and the wardrobe. Like it's so he still maintains such a distinct style even with all that. Um, and he's so just like villainous too, and he's so creepy at points, and it's just really well done. Um, my best supporting actress, I'm going to line up with the real Oscars. Claire Trevor from Key Largo, won in real life and also in my picks, so that's cool. This is a really great performance. She plays the gangster's kind of like ex-girlfriend, I guess you could say, who's kind of depressed and like alcoholic and like all of these sad things. But it's a really great film because of the performances, because it's essentially all in one location, all a chamber play, Key Largo. So it's another one where you have to have great performances or else no one would buy it. So yeah, those are my picks. 1948, pretty good.
It definitely seems like the one we're going to line up on the most. Yeah, so 1949 was probably the hardest year for me overall, when I had to rely most on kind of looking around for options, short of watching like 20 films. But I'm going to try to spread the wealth around for this one. For Best Picture, I'm going to give it to Late Spring. So this is like an acclaimed Japanese like slice of life family drama film known for relying on its character relationships first and foremost. I think sometimes it's the right call to rely on like simplicity, emotions, and relatable themes to get the job done. So that will win Best Picture for me. But for Best Director, Carol Reed, The Third Man, post-war British film drenched in atmosphere. Even if you haven't seen it, you even kind of know of it. The Third Man theme, of course, is iconic in itself. And then for screenplay, Kind Hearts and Coronets. Love a great black comedy, and I love when movies of this era aren't afraid to get a bit crazy with their ideas. And I think you need a sharp script to make it all come together like that. So those are the three films there, and gonna keep it mixing it up here with Best Actor, James Cagney for White Heat, starring as this like sadistic, psychopathic gangster with mother issues. And I could kind of see how this would have an influence on some of the Scorsese anti-heroes to come decades later. And then Best Actress, I think I'll back the actual winner here, Olivia de Havilland for The Heiress. In classic lead fashion, there's like this evolution over the course of the film, a role that demands like transformation from like a more naive, shy, repressed character to someone who's more assured but maybe cynical and hardened. And then I think my lone double up here would be Orson Welles for The Third Man, playing the iconic Harry Lime character here. By all accounts, a show stealer with off the charts presence. And then lastly, we have for supporting actress, another actual winner I'm going with here, Mercedes McCambridge for All the King's Men. She plays the secretary to the lead, Willie Stark. She has a mind for politics and knows how things work, but she's hardened by the world. Not a big part, but she makes the absolute most of it. And she's actually, fun fact, she would later do the voice of the demon in The Exorcist. That's kind of fun. She has this kind of, commanding voice, so you can kind of see how that would lead to that. So those are my 1949 picks.
Yeah, I think we got a little bit of crossover. So that's good. My pick for Best Picture is going to be Kind Hearts and Coronets. It's funny because I think if you asked me, I'd probably say I think The Third Man's like a better movie. Like if I was trying to be more objective, but I just like this one more. I think it's just super well told. I like that the lead character, you still feel some sympathy for him, even though he's going on this like murderous rampage, killing the 9 Alec Guinnesses, because you know where it's coming from, and like he seriously was so deeply betrayed by them. So it's a really great film. I really like the dark ending. It's so funny how he writes the confession and then he gets off and then the confession's still just like there and it's like, oh fuck. Um, but yeah, I just think it's all around a really great movie. But my director pick, I'm gonna line up with you with Third Man with Carol Reed. Yeah, really underappreciated director with this, The Fallen Idol, Odd Man Out. Like you directed a lot of great films. This is probably his best, just because it's such a good portrait of Vienna post-war. It has that. I've heard the tone described as like seedy, which I do see. It has a very kind of like underhanded, sleazy style. And also the main character is just so great, as well as Orson Welles. And I decided to give Orson Welles main actor, even though I think he's listed like third. But I feel like if you asked anyone like a character from this, they'd name his first. So I thought that was a good indicator. So yeah, Harry Lime, just all-time great villain. The famous cuckoo clock speech is just so memorable, and there's a reason it's so acclaimed and hyped, is because it's so powerful, and it's also just like cheeky and like in a very Orson Welles way, despite how grim it is, which I really like. I guess this is a big year for like black comedy shit for me. Um, yeah, and I'm gonna go with Third Man for Best Actress, Valley. I think she's credited mononymously on the film. But yeah, it's really great. Her performance as she's conflicted, and I really like how she scene. That's really cool. It's all very well done. All the characters have great interactions in the film. I really like that. Best supporting actor, my winner is going to be Alec Guinness again, second year in a row in Kind Hearts and Coronets, playing 8 roles, I think, and it's such a great performance because he really manages to make them distinct. Like I really like how he's able to make it so that Louis Mazzini feels like guilt over some of the killings and like not doesn't feel bad at all over some of them because he plays the characters so differently. And I think it sounds like, I guess in today's age with like Jack and Jill and the Nutty Professor and stuff, it sounds like inherently a joke to have an actor do multiple roles. But this and Doctor Strangelove and a lot of movies like that show that, like, it can have a lot of potential for a movie. And my best supporting actress, I'm gonna also go with Kind Hearts and Coronets with Joan Greenwood. I just really like her character. I really like her performance. Her voice is like so distinctive, and I really think it. I've seen her in a few films, and it's always like a thing I pick up on. Is like she doesn't sound like any other actress. I mean, that's a good thing, I guess. It makes her very distinctive. But yeah, I really like her voice. I don't know why. But and then we're gonna line up on screenplay because I also gave it to Robert Hamer and John Dykton from Kind Hearts and Coronets because I think Very creative script, very dark, but also has that magical kind of whimsy element. So yeah, that's my 1949 picks. I guess all the years I get we lined up on one of the pictures, so that's good.
Yeah, nice to be able to kind of showcase a bunch of different ones, but have a bit of
Yeah.
overlap as well. So yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, yeah. Got anything else to say before we wrap this one up?
Um, I mean, I guess kind of like I said, I know more films from the early 40s, but certainly in terms of peak, like, I mean, It's a Wonderful Life is probably my favorite film of the decade for sure. So in terms of like the top stuff, you can definitely see how filmmaking is still evolving and and growing in its own way. So yeah.
Yeah. But one thing I just before we wrap up, to give a quick spotlight, I made a short list of a few of the films that I couldn't get a single win for, but I think are still great and I would still recommend. So one of them was The Big Sleep. I just couldn't slot this one in, but it's a great movie. Very classic film noir. Another one, Louisiana Story from 1948. Awesome, awesome movie. Super well directed. Probably my runner-up for director that year. And the last one would be Orson Welles' production of Macbeth. Just couldn't fit it in anywhere, but it's a super great film. It was basically shot on leftover low budget Western sets. So it everything looks super weird and it's like everything is full of fog and crazy stuff. So yeah, those are my picks for movies I just couldn't get anywhere, even though I really wanted to. So yeah. Um, thanks everyone for watching, and I guess we'll see you when we get into the 50s, which will be a fun time. Take care.
Sounds good. Thank you.